Hello, my friends. Indiana Holmes here for you for story time. And we continue again with the Three Musketeers, chapter 17. Bienvenue at home. It was the second time the cardinal had mentioned these diamond studs to the king. Louis XIII was stuck, or should I say struck, with this insistence, and began to fancy that this recommendation concealed some mystery. More than once the king had been humiliated by the cardinal, whose police, without having yet attained the perfection of the modern police, were excellent, being better informed than himself, even upon what was going on in his own household. He hoped then, in a conversation with Anne of Austria, to obtain some information from that conversation, and afterwards to come upon his eminence with some secret which the cardinal either knew or did not know, but which in either case would raise him infinitely in the eyes of his minister. He went to the queen, and according to custom accosted her with fresh menaces against those who surrounded her. Anne of Austria lowered her head, allowed the torrent to flow on without replying, hoping that it would cease of itself. But this was not what Louis XIII meant. Louis XIII wanted a discussion from which some light or other might break, convinced as he was that the cardinal had some afterthought and was preparing for him one of those terrible surprises which his eminence was so skillful in getting up. He arrived at this end by his persistence in accusation. "But," cried Anne of Austria, tired of these vague attacks, "but, sire, you do not tell me all that you have in your heart. What have I done then? Let me know what crime I have committed. It is impossible that your majesty can make all this ado about a letter written to my brother." The king, attacked in a manner so direct, did not know what to answer, and he thought that this was the moment for expressing the desire which he was not going to have made until the evening before the fete. "Madame," said he, with dignity, "there will shortly be a ball at the Hotel de Ville. I wish, in order to honor our worthy alderman, you should appear in ceremonial costume, and above all ornamented with the diamond studs which I gave you on your birthday. That is my answer." The answer was terrible. Anne of Austria believed that Louis XIII knew all, and that the cardinal had persuaded him to employ his long dissimulation of 7 or 8 days, which likewise was characteristic. She became excessively pale, leaned her beautiful hand upon a console, which hand then, like one of wax, and looking at the king with terror in her eyes, she was unable to reply by a single syllable. "You hear, madame," said the king. "You enjoyed the embarrassment to its full extent, but without guessing the cause. You hear, madame?" "Yes, sire, I hear," stammered the queen. "You will appear at this ball?" "Yes." "With those studs?" "Yes." The queen's paleness, if possible, increased. The king perceived it and enjoyed it with that cold cruelty which was one of the worst sides of his character. "Then that is agreed," said the king, "and that is all I had to say to you. But on what day will this ball take place, Anne?" asked Anne of Austria. Louis XIII felt instinctively that he ought not to reply to this question, the queen having put it in an almost dying voice. "Oh, very shortly, madame," said he, "but I do not precisely recollect the date of the day. I will ask the cardinal." "It was the cardinal, then, who informed you of this fete?" "Yes, madame," replied the astonished king. "But why do you ask that?" "It was he who told you to invite me to appear with these studs." "That is to say, madame, it was he, sire, it was he." "Well, and what does it signify whether it was he or I? Is there any crime in this request?" "No, sire." "Then you will appear." "Yes, sire." "That is well," said the king, retiring. "That is well. I count upon it." The queen made a curtsy, less from etiquette than because her knees were sinking under her. The king went away enchanted. "I am lost," murmured the queen. "Lost, for the cardinal knows all, and it is he who urges the king, who has yet knows nothing, but will soon know everything. I am lost. My God, my God, my God!" She knelt upon a cushion and prayed, with her head buried between her palpitating arms. In fact, her position was terrible. Buckingham had returned to London. Madame de Chevreuse was at Tours, more closely watched than ever, the queen felt certain, without knowing how to tell which, that one of her women had betrayed her. Laporte could not leave the Louvre. She had not a soul in the world in whom she could confide. Thus, while contemplating the misfortune which threatened her and the abandonment in which she was left, she broke out into sobs and tears. "Can I be of service to your majesty?" said all at once a voice full of sweetness and pity. The queen turned sharply around, for there could be no deception in the expression of that voice. It was a friend who spoke thus. In fact, at one of the doors which opened into the queen's apartment appeared the pretty Madame Bonchenot. She had been engaged in arranging the dresses and linen in the closet when the king entered. She could not get out and heard all. The queen uttered a piercing cry at finding herself surprised, for in her trouble she did not at first recognize the young woman who had been given to her by Laporte. "Oh, fear nothing, madame," said the young woman, clasping her hands and weeping herself at the queen's sorrows. "I am your majesty's body and soul, and however far I may be from you, however inferior may be my position, I believe I have discovered a means of extracting your majesty from your trouble." "You? Oh, heaven, you?" cried the queen. "But look at me in the face. I am betrayed on all sides. Can I trust in you?" "Oh, madame," cried the young woman, falling on her knees, "upon my soul I am ready to die for your majesty." This expression sprang from the very bottom of the heart, and, like the first, there was no mistaking it. "Yes," continued Madame Bonchenot, "yes, there are traitors here, but, by the holy name of the Virgin, I swear that no one is more devoted to your majesty than I am. Those studs which the king speaks of, you gave them to the Duke of Buckingham, did you not? Those studs were enclosed in a little rosewood box, which he held under his arm. Am I deceived? Is it not so, madame?" "Oh, my God, murmured the queen, whose teeth chattered with fright. "Well, those studs," continued Madame Bonchenot, "we must have them back." "Yes, without a doubt, it is necessary," cried the queen. "But how am I to act? How can it be effected?" "Someone must be sent to the duke. But who? Who? In whom can I trust?" "Place confidence in me, madame. Do me that honor, my queen, and I will find a messenger. But I must write." "Oh, yes, that is indispensable. 2 words from the hand of your majesty and your private seal." "But these 2 words would bring about my condemnation, divorce, exile." "Yes, if they fell into infamous hands. But I will answer for these 2 words being delivered to their address." "Oh, my God! I must then place my life, my honor, my reputation in your hands." "Yes, yes, madame, you must, and I will save them all." "But how? Tell me, at least, the means." "My husband has been at liberty these 2 or 3 days. I have not yet had time to see him again. He is a worthy, honest man, who entertains neither love nor hatred for anybody. He will do anything I wish. He will set out upon receiving an order from me, without knowing what he carries, and he will carry your majesty's letter, without even knowing if it's from your majesty, to the address which is on it." The queen took the 2 hands of the young woman, with a burst of emotion, gazed at her, as if to read her very heart, and seeing nothing but sincerity in her beautiful eyes, embraced her tenderly. "Do that," cried she, "and you will have saved my life. You will have saved my honor. Do not exaggerate the service I have the happiness to render your majesty. I have nothing to say for your majesty. You are only the victim of perfidious plots." That is true, my child," said the queen. "You are right." "Give me then that letter, madame. Time presses." The queen ran to a little table on which were ink, paper, and pens. She wrote 2 lines, sealed in a letter with her private seal, and gave it to Madame Bonchenot. "And now," said the queen, "we are forgetting one very necessary thing." "What is that, madame?" "Money." Madame Bonchenot blushed. "Yes, that is true," she said. "And I will confess to your majesty that my husband—" "Your husband has none. Is that what you would say?" "He has some, but he is very avaricious. That is his fault. Nevertheless, let not your majesty be uneasy. We will find means." "And I have none either," said the queen. "Those who have read the memoirs of Madame de Motteville will not be astonished at this reply. But wait a minute." Anne of Austria ran to her jewel case. "Here," said she, "here is a ring of great value. As I have been assured, it came from my brother, the King of Spain. It is mine, and I am at liberty to dispose of it. Take this ring, raise money with it, and let your husband set out. In an hour you shall be obeyed." "You shall see the address," said the queen, speaking so low that Madame Bonchenot could hardly hear what she said. "To my Lord Duke Buckingham, London. The letter shall be given to himself." "Generous girl," cried Anne of Austria. Madame Bonchenot kissed the hands of the queen, concealed the paper in her bosom of her dress, and disappeared with the lightness of a bird. 10 minutes afterwards she was at home. As she told the queen, she had not seen her husband since his liberation. She was ignorant of the change that had taken place in him with respect to the cardinal, a change which had since been strengthened by 2 or 3 visits from the Comte de Rochefort, who had become the best friend of Bonacieux, and had persuaded him, without much trouble, that no culpable sentiments had prompted the abduction of his wife, but that it was only a political precaution. She found Monsieur Bonchenot alone. The poor man was recovering, with difficulty, the order in his house, in which he had found most of the furniture broken and the closets nearly emptied, justice not being one of the 3 things which King Solomon names as leaving no traces of their passage. As to the servant, she had run away at the moment of her master's arrest. Terror had such an effect upon the poor girl that she had never ceased walking from Paris till she reached Burgundy, her native place. The worthy mercer had, immediately upon re-entering his house, informed his wife of his happy return, and his wife had replied by congratulating him and telling him that the first moment she could steal from her duties should be devoted to paying him a visit. This first moment had been delayed 5 days, which, under any other circumstances, might have appeared rather long to Monsieur Bonchenot, but he had, in the visit he had made to the cardinal, and in the visits Rochefort had made him, ample subjects for reflection. And, as everybody knows, nothing makes time pass more quickly than reflection. This was the more so because Bonchenot's reflections were all rose-colored. Rochefort called him his friend, his dear Bonchenot, and never ceased telling him that the cardinal had great respect for him. The mercer fancied himself already on the high road to honors and fortune. On her side, Madame Bonchenot had also reflected, but it must be admitted, upon something wildly different from ambition. In spite of herself, her thoughts constantly reverted to that handsome young man who was so brave and appeared to be so much in love. Married at 18 to Monsieur Bonchenot, having always lived among her husband's friends, people little capable of inspiring any sentiment whatever in a young woman whose heart was above her position, Madame Bonchenot had remained insensible to vulgar seductions. But at this period the title of gentleman had great influence with the citizen class, and D'Artagnan was a gentleman. Besides, he wore the uniform of the guards, which, next to that of Musketeers, was most admired by the ladies. He was, we repeat, handsome, young, and bold. He spoke of love like a man who did love and was anxious to be loved in return. There was certainly enough in all this to turn a head only 23 years old, and Madame Bonchenot had just attained that happy period of life. The couple then, although they had not seen each other for 8 days, and during that time serious events had taken place in which both were concerned, accosted each other with a degree of preoccupation. Nevertheless, Bonchenot manifested real joy and advanced toward his wife with open arms. Madame Bonchenot presented her cheek to him. "Let us talk a little," said she. "How?" said Bonchenot, astonished. "Yes, I have something of the highest importance to tell you." "True," said he, "and I have some questions sufficiently serious to put to you. Describe to me your abduction, I pray you." "Oh, that's of no consequence just now," said Madame Bonchenot. "And what does it concern, then? My captivity? I heard of it the day it happened, but as you were not guilty of any crime, as you were not guilty of any intrigue, as you, in short, knew nothing that could compromise yourself or anybody else, I attached no more importance to it than it merited." "You speak very much at your ease, madame," said Bonchenot, hurt at the little interest his wife showed in him. "Do you know that I was plunged during a day and night in a dungeon of the Bastille?" "Oh, a day and night soon pass away. Let us return to the object that brings me here." "What? That which brings you home to me? It is not the desire of seeing a husband again from whom you have been separated for a week?" asked the mercer, piqued to the quick. "Yes, that first, and other things afterwards." "Speak." "It is a thing of highest interest, and upon which our future fortune perhaps depends. The complexion of our fortune has changed very much since I saw you, Madame Bonchenot, and I should not be astonished if, in the course of a few months, it were to excite the envy of many folks. Yes, particularly if you follow the instructions I am about to give you." "Me?" "Yes, you. There is good and holy action to be performed, monsieur, and much money to be gained at the same time." Madame Bonchenot knew that in talking of money to her husband, she took him on his weak side, but a man, were he even a mercer, when he had talked for 10 minutes with Cardinal Richelieu, is no longer the same man. "Much money to be gained?" said Bonchenot, protruding his lip. "Yes, much." "About how much?" 1,000 pistoles, perhaps." "What you demand of me is serious, then?" "It is indeed." "What must be done? You must go away immediately. I will give you a paper which you must not part with on any account, and which you will deliver into the proper hands." "And whither am I to go?" "To London." "I go to London?" "Go to... You jest. I have no business in London. But others wish that you should go there." "But who are those others? I warn you that I will never again work in the dark, and that I will know not only to what I expose myself, but for whom I expose myself." "An illustrious person sends you. An illustrious person awaits you. The recompense will exceed your expectations. That is all I promise you." "More intrigues, nothing but intrigues." "Thank you, madame. I am aware of them now. Monseigneur Cardinal has enlightened me on that head." "The Cardinal!" cried Madame Bonchenot. "Have you seen the Cardinal?" "He sent for me," answered the mercer proudly. "And you responded to his bidding?" "You imprudent man!" "Well, I can't say I had much choice of going or not going, for I was taken to him between 2 guards. It is true also that, as I did not then know his eminence, if I had been able to dispense with the visit, I should have been enchanted." "He ill-treated you, then? He threatened you?" "He gave me his hand and called me his friend." "His friend! Do you hear that, madame? I am the friend of the great cardinal." "Of the great cardinal?" "Perhaps you would contest his right to that title, madame?" "I would contest nothing, but I tell you that the favor of a minister is ephemeral, and that a man must be mad to attach himself to a minister. There are powers above his which do not depend on a man or the issue of an event. It is to these powers we should rally. I am sorry for it, madame, but I acknowledge no other power but that of the great man who I have the honor to serve. You serve the cardinal? Yes, madame, and as his servant I will not allow you to be concerned in plots against the safety of the state, or to serve in the intrigues of a woman who is not French and who has a Spanish heart. Fortunately, we have a great cardinal. His vigilant eye watches over and penetrates to the bottom of our hearts. Bonchenu was repeating word for word a sentence which he had heard from the Comte de Roquefort. But the poor wife, who had reckoned on her husband, and who, in that hope, had answered for him to the queen, did not tremble the less, both at the danger into which she had nearly cast herself, and at the helpless state to which she was reduced. Nevertheless, knowing the weakness of her husband, and more particularly his cupidity, she did not despair of bringing him round to her purpose. "Ah, you are a cardinalist, then, monsieur, are you?" cried she, "and you serve the party of those who maltreat your wife and insult your queen. Private interests are as nothing before the interests of all. I am for those who save the state," said Bonchenu emphatically. "And what do you know about the state you talk of?" said Madame Bonchenu, shrugging her shoulders. "Be satisfied with being a plain, straightforward citizen, and turn that side which offers the most advantages." "Ah, said Bonchenu, slapping a plump, round bag, which returned a sound of money. "What do you think of this, Madame Preacher? Whence comes that money? You do not guess. From the cardinal, from him, and from my friend Comte de Roquefort." "The Comte de Roquefort? Why, it was he who carried me off." "That may be, madame. And you received silver from that man? Have you not said that abduction was entirely political?" "Yes, but that abduction had for its object the betrayal of my mistress, to draw from me by torture confessions that might compromise the honor and perhaps the life of my august mistress." "Madame," replied Bonchenu, "your august mistress is a perfidious Spaniard, and what the cardinal does is well done." "Monsieur," said the young woman, "I know you to be cowardly, avarice, and foolish, but I never till now believed you infamous." "Madam," said Bonchenu, who had never seen his wife in passion, and who had recoiled before this conjugal anger, "Madam, what do you say?" "I say you are a miserable creature," continued Madame Bonchenu, who saw she was regaining some little influence over her husband. "You meddle with politics, do you? And still more, with cardinalist politics. Why, you sell yourself, body and soul, to the demon, the devil, for money." "No, to the cardinal. It is the same thing," cried the young woman, who calls Richelieu Satan. Hold your tongue, madame. You may be overheard. Yes, you are right. I should be ashamed for anyone to know your business, your baseness." "But what do you require of me, then? Let us see." "I have told you. You must depart instantly, monsieur. You must accomplish loyally the commission with which I deign to charge you. And on that condition, I pardon everything. I forget everything. And on what is more," and she held out her hand to him, "I restore my love." Bonchenu was cowardly and avaricious, but he loved his wife. He was softened. A man of 50 cannot long bear malice with a wife of 23. Madame Bonchenu saw that he hesitated. "Come, have you decided?" said she. "But, my dear love, reflect a little upon what you require of me. London is far from Paris, very far, and perhaps the commission with which you charge me is not without dangers. What matters it if you avoid them?" Hold, Madame Bonchenu, said the mercer. Hold, and I positively refuse. Intrigues terrify me. I have seen the Bastille. Phew, that's my frightful place, that Bastille. Only to think of it makes my flesh crawl. They threatened me with torture. Do you know what torture is? Wooden points. They stick in between your legs till your bones stick out. No, positively, I will not go. And morbleu, why do you not go yourself? For in truth, I think I have hitherto been deceived in you. I really believe you are a man, and a violent one too. And you are a woman, a miserable woman, stupid and brutal. You are afraid, are you? Well, if you do not go this very instant, I will have you arrested by the Queen's orders, and I will have you placed in the Bastille, which you dread so much. Bonchenu fell into a profound reflection. He weighed the two angers in his brain, that of the cardinal and that of the Queen. That of the cardinal predominated enormously. Have me arrested on the part of the Queen, said he, and I will appeal to his eminence. At once Madame Bonchenu saw that she had gone too far, and she was terrified at having communicated so much. She for a moment contemplated with fright that stupid countenance, impressed with the invincible resolution of a fool that is overcome of fear. Well, be it so, said she. Perhaps when all is considered, you are right in the long run. A man knows more about politics than a woman, particularly such as, like you, Monsieur Bonchenu, have conversed with the cardinal. And yet it is very hard, added she, that a man upon whose affection I thought I might depend treats me thus unkindly and will not comply with my fancies. That is because your fancies go too far, replied the triumphant Bonchenu, and I mistrust them. Well, I will give it up, then, said the young woman, sighing. It is well as it is. Say no more about it. At least you should tell me what I should have to do in London, said Bonchenu, who remembered a little too late that Rochefort had desired him to endeavor to obtain his wife's secrets. It is of no use for you to know anything about it, said the young woman, whom an instinctive mistrust now impelled to draw back. It was about one of those purchases that interest women, a purchase by which much might have been gained. But the more the young woman excused herself, the more important Bonchenu thought the secret which she declined to confide to him. He resolved then to hasten immediately to the residence of the Comte de Rochefort and tell him that the Queen was seeking a messenger to send to London. Pardon me for quitting you, my dear Madame Bonchenu, said he, but not knowing you would come to see me, I had made an engagement with my friend. I shall soon return, and if you will wait only a few minutes for me, as soon as I have concluded my business with that friend, as it is growing late, I will come back and reconduct you to the Louvre. Thank you, monsieur. You are not brave enough to be of any use to me whatever, replied Madame Bonchenu. I shall return very safely to the Louvre, all alone. As you please, Madame Bonchenu, said the ex-mercer. Shall I see you again soon? Next week I hope my duties will afford me a little liberty, and I will take advantage of it, to come and put things in order here, as they must necessarily be much deranged. Very well, I shall expect you. You are not angry with me? Not in the least in the world. Till then. Till then. Bonchenu kissed his wife's hand and set off at a quick pace. Well, said Madame Bonchenu, when her husband had shut the street door, she found herself alone. That imbecile lacked but one thing, to become a cardinalist, and I, who have answered for him to the Queen, I, who have promised my poor mistress, my God, she will take me for one of those wretches with whom the palace swarms, and who are placed about her as spies. Monsieur Bonchenu, I never did love you much, but now it is worse than ever. I hate you, and On my word, you shall pay for this." At the moment she spoke these words, a rap on the ceiling made her raise her head, and a voice, which reached her through the ceiling, cried, "Dear Madame Bonchenot, open for me the little door on the alley, and I will come down to you." Well, well, well. Things are getting very interesting. So much court intrigue and so much danger. We will continue now with chapter 18, Lover and Husband. "Ah, madame," said D'Artagnan, entering the room which the young woman opened for him, "allow me to tell you that I have made a bad sort of husband." "You have, then, overheard our conversation?" asked Madame Bonchenot eagerly, and looking at D'Artagnan with disquiet. "The whole. But how, my God?" "By a mode of proceeding known to myself, and by which I likewise overheard the more animated conversation which he had with the cardinal's police. And what did you understand by what he said?" "A thousand things. In the first place, that, unfortunately, your husband is a simpleton and a fool. In the next place, you are in trouble, of which I am very glad, as it gives me an opportunity of placing myself at your service. And, God knows, I am ready to throw myself into the fire for you. Finally, the Queen wants a brave, intelligent, devoted man to make a journey to London for her. I have at least 2 of the 3 qualities you stand in need of, and here I am." Madame Bonchenot made no reply, but her heart beat with joy, and secret hope shone in her eyes. "And what guarantee will you give me," asked she, "if I consent to confide this message to you? My love for you. Speak, command. What is to be done?" My God," murmured the young woman. "Ought I to confide such a secret to you, monsieur? You are almost a boy. I see that you require someone to answer for me. I admit that would reassure me greatly. Do you know Athos? No. Porthos? No. Aramis? No. Who are these gentlemen? 3 of the king's Musketeers. Do you know Monsieur de Tréville, their captain?" "Oh, yes, him. I know him, not personally, but from having heard the queen speak of him more than once as a brave and loyal gentleman." "You do not fear lest he should betray you to the cardinal?" "Oh, no, certainly not." "Well, reveal your secret to him, and ask him whether, however important, however valuable, however terrible it may be, you may not confide it to me." "But this secret is not mine, and I cannot reveal it in this manner." "You were about to confide it to Monsieur Bonchenot," said D'Artagnan, with a chagrin, "as one confides a letter to the hollow of a tree, to the wing of a pigeon, to the collar of a dog. And yet me, you see plainly that I love you. You say so. I am an honorable man. You say so. I am a gallant fellow. I believe it. I am brave. Oh, I am sure of that." "Then put me to the proof." Madame Bonchenot looked at the young man, restrained for a minute by last hesitation, but there was such an ardor in his eyes, such persuasion in his voice, that she felt herself constrained to confide in him. Besides, she found herself in circumstances where everything must be risked for the sake of everything. The queen might be as much injured by too much reticence as by too much confidence, and, let us admit it, the involuntary sentiment which she felt for her young protector decided her to speak. "Listen," said she. "I yield to your protestations. I yield to your assurances. But I swear to you before God who is hearing us, that if you betray me and my enemies pardon me, I will kill myself while accusing you of my death." "And I swear to you before God, madame," said D'Artagnan, "that if I am taken while accomplishing the orders you give me, I will die sooner than do anything that may compromise any one. Then the young woman confided in him the terrible secret of which chance had already communicated to him apart in front of the Samaritan. This was their mutual declaration of love. D'Artagnan was radiant with joy and pride. This secret which he possessed, this woman whom he loved, confidence and love made him a giant. "I go," said he. "I go at once." "How, you will go?" said Madame Bonchenot. "And your regiment, your captain? By my soul, you had made me forget all that, dear Constance. Yes, you are right. A furlough is needful." "Still another obstacle," murmured Madame Bonchenot sorrowfully. "As to that," cried D'Artagnan, after a moment of reflection, "I shall surmount it, be assured." "How so?" "I will go this very evening to Tréville, whom I will request to ask this favor for me of his brother-in-law, Monsieur d'Essart. But another thing." "What?" asked D'Artagnan, seeing that Madame Bonchenot hesitated to continue. "You have perhaps no money." "Perhaps is too much," said D'Artagnan, smiling. "Then," replied Madame Bonchenot, opening a cupboard and taking from it the very bag which a half-hour before her husband had caressed so affectionately, "take this bag." "The cardinal's?" cried D'Artagnan, breaking into a loud laugh. He having heard, as may be remembered, thanks to the broken boards, every syllable of the conversation between the mercer and his wife. "The cardinal's," replied Madame Bonchenot. "You see, it makes a very respectable appearance." "Pardieu!" cried D'Artagnan. "It will be a double amusing affair to save the queen with the cardinal's money." "You are an amiable and charming young man," said Madame Bonchenot. "Be assured you will not find her majesty ungrateful." "Oh, I am already grandly recompensed," said D'Artagnan. "I love you. You permit me to tell you that I do. That is already more happiness than I dared to hope." "Silence," said Madame Bonchenot, starting. "What? Someone is talking in the street. It is a voice of my husband. Yes, I recognize it." D'Artagnan ran to the door and pushed the bolt. "He shall not come in before I am gone," said he, "and when I am gone, you can open it to him." "But I ought to be gone too. And the disappearance of his money? How am I going to justify it if I am here?" "You are right. We must go out." "Go out? How?" "He will see us if we go out." "Then you must come up to my room." "Ah," said Madame Bonchenot, "you speak that in a tone that frightens me." Madame Bonchenot pronounced these words with tears in her eyes. D'Artagnan saw those tears, and, much disturbed, softened. He threw himself at her feet. "With me you will be as safe as in the Temple. I give you my word of a gentleman." "Let us go," said she. "I place full confidence in you, my friend." D'Artagnan drew back the bolt with precaution, and both, light as shadows, glided through the interior door into the passage, ascended the stairs as quietly as possible, and entered D'Artagnan's chambers. Once there, for greater security, the young man barricaded the door. They both approached the window, and through the slit in the shutter they saw Bonchenot talking with a man in a cloak. At this sight of this man, D'Artagnan started, and half drawing his sword, sprang toward the door. It was the man of Meung. "And what are you going to do?" cried Madame Bonchenot. "You will ruin us all." "But I have sworn to kill that man," said D'Artagnan. "Your life is devoted from this moment, and does not belong to you. In the name of the queen, I forbid you to throw yourself into any peril which is foreign to that of your journey. And do you command nothing in your own name?" "In my name," said Madame Bonchenot with great emotion, "in my name I beg you, but listen, they appear to be speaking of me." D'Artagnan drew near the window and lent his ear. Monsieur Bonchenot had opened his door, and, seeing the apartment, had returned to the man in the cloak, whom he had left for an instant. "She is gone," said he. "She must have returned to the Louvre." "You are sure," replied the stranger, "that she did not suspect the intentions with which you went out?" "No," replied Bonchenot, with a self-sufficient air. She is too superficial a woman. Is the young guardsman at home? I do not think he is. As you see, his shutter is closed, and as you can see, no light shines through the chinks of the shutters. All the same, it is well to be certain. How so? By knocking at his door. Go. I will ask his servant. Bonchenu re-entered the house, passed through the same door that afforded a passage for two fugitives actually, and went up to D'Artagnan's door and knocked. No one answered. Porthos, in order to make a greater display, had that evening borrowed Planchette. As to D'Artagnan, he took care not to give the least sign of his existence. The moment the hand of Bonchenu sounded on the door, the two young people felt their hearts pound within them. There is nobody within, said Bonchenu. Never mind, let us return to your apartment. We shall be safer there than in the doorway. Oh my God, whispered Madame Bonchenu. We shall hear no more. On the contrary, said D'Artagnan, we shall hear better. D'Artagnan raised the 3 or 4 boards which made his chamber another ear of Dionysus, spread a carpet on the floor, went upon his knees, and made a sign to Madame Bonchenu to stoop as he did toward the opening. You are sure there is nobody here, said the stranger. I will answer for it, said Bonchenu. And you think that your wife has returned to the Louvre without speaking to anyone but yourself? I am sure of it. That is an important point. Do you understand? Then the news I brought you is of value. The greatest, my dear Bonchenu. I don't conceal this from you. Then the cardinal will be pleased with me. I have no doubt of it. The great cardinal. Are you sure, in her conversation with you, that your wife mentioned no names? I think not. She did not name Madame de Chevreuse, the Duke of Buckingham, or Madame de Verneuil. No, she only told me that she wished to send me to London to serve the interest of an illustrious personage. The traitor, murmured Madame Bonchenu. Silence, said D'Artagnan, taking her hand, which, without thinking of it, she abandoned to him. Never mind, continued the man in the cloak. You were a fool not to have pretended to accept the mission. You would then be in present possession of the letter. The state, which is now threatened, would be safe. And you, and I? Well, you, the cardinal, would have given you letters of nobility. Did he tell you so? Yes, I know that he meant to afford you that agreeable surprise. Be satisfied, replied Bonchenu. My wife adores me, and there is yet time. The ninny, murmured Madame Bonchenu. Silence, said D'Artagnan, pressing her hand more closely. How is there still time? Asked the man in the cloak. I go to the Louvre. I ask for Madame Bonchenu. I say that I have reflected. I renew the affair. I obtain the letter. I run directly to the cardinal. Well, go quickly. I will return soon to learn the result of your trip. The stranger went out. Infamous, said Madame Bonchenu, addressing this epithet to her husband. Silence, said D'Artagnan, pressing her hand still more warmly. A terrible howling interrupted these reflections of D'Artagnan and Madame Bonchenu. It was her husband who had discovered the disappearance of the money bag and was crying, Thieves! Oh, my God, Madame Bonchenu! He will rouse the whole quarter. Bonchenu called a long time, but such cries, on account of their frequency, brought nobody to the Rue des Fossoyeurs. And, as lately the mercer's house had a bad name, finding that nobody came, he went out continuing to call, his voice being heard fainter and fainter as he went in the direction of the Rue des Bacs. Now he is gone. It is your turn to get out, said Madame Bonchenu. Courage, my friend, above all, prudence, and think what you owe to the queen, to her and to you, cried D'Artagnan. Be satisfied, beautiful Constance. I shall become worthy of her gratitude, but shall I likewise return worthy of your lover? The young woman only replied by the beautiful glow which mounted to her cheeks. A few seconds afterward, D'Artagnan also went out, enveloped in a large cloak, which ill concealed the sheath of a long sword. Madame Bonchenu followed him with her eyes. With that long, fond look with which a woman accompanies the man she loves. But when she had turned at the angle of the street, she fell on her knees, and clasping her hands, "Oh my God," she cried, "protect the Queen, protect me." And that, my friends, is the end of that chapter. Tomorrow night we will continue with the Three Musketeers. So for now, I say good night to you all. Much love to each of you, and I'll see you tomorrow night. This has been Indiana Holmes. Good night, everyone.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.